What's up everyone? Lance Hedrick here, and today I'm so excited to talk about the new BARATZA ENCORE ESP. Now, like so many of you, my first experience with a home coffee grinder was the BARATZA ENCORE. It's kind of the hallmark of home coffee. Over the years, I fell out of love with the Encore's cut profile. I just no longer really enjoyed it as I continued to, develop my palate. Sounds so snobby to say that, but and something I never understood is over all of these years, there was never an updated version. There was never changes. I guess, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I heard last year when I was at World of Coffee in Milan, or I should say I saw, that there was a new grinder they were introducing, and it was a revamped Encore. Now, there are a few things different about this, and we'll go through all of them in the video, but it's $199, which is one of the cheaper all-around machines on the market. And as you know, just a few days ago, I posted the fellow Opus video, which is the same price point. So this is an incredibly exciting time when big companies like BARATZA, like Fellow, are creating sub $200 all-around grinders in order to make coffee more accessible. I'm just so friggin' excited about it. Okay? Go ahead, hit the like, hit the subscribe, maybe leave a comment below saying chicky chicky boom boom, and we're gonna continue on. So here they are. I have both a white and a black one. Now the reason they're called ESP is that they are capable of doing espresso with really fine movements. On the bottom, you have two different options. You either have the full catch bin, which is what I'm used to. When I first was playing around with an Encore, we had this normal catch bin, and it is a tight fit. Pretty tight fit, which is good. And something I remember doing in my baby barista days is I would do this because of all the static it produced. But anyway, you'll see the static here in a bit. So we do a little bit of that. Good job right there. And then it also comes with this attachment. So you have a little rubber base, or I don't know, it's rubber, or like a hard plastic or something, or soft plastic, I should say. Anyway, so you have this little base that goes right here. Boom, and it has a little cutout, a circular cutout for the dosing cup to sit in. So that sits right below, you can grind into that. And of course we have this rubber O-ring gasket around the top that fits nicely in a 58 millimeter portafilter. So like that, you can dose directly into it. So I think the dosing cup is nice. It's what I prefer to use, but this was probably a cleaner option. And obviously if you're doing a lot of coffee, it's the preferred way of doing it. When we turn it to the side, you of course see the usual on-off switch. So you have 0 or O, which is marking off, to on. Sounds just like a BARATZA, don't it? It's a pretty loud grinder. So let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. This is just as loud as the original Encore, not as loud as the Sete though. So pretty loud, pretty loud. The Burrs rotate at 550 RPM, and the motor is, more than robust enough, as we know from the original Encore. People had no problems with stalling out on those. I've not experienced any stalling. I've done cold starts, meaning the Burrs were not moving, dumped in 30 grams of super lightly roasted coffee on espresso settings, no stall. So I've not been able to stall this with even the lightest of roasted coffees. We continue to move up, and this is like a purge button, or if you want to just manually run it, when you click it, ooh, that's what happens. It kind of gets you in the mode because you can do little You can obviously get the single dose hoppers, which I have on the white. I took it off the black so that we could have a little variation. But single dose hoppers, it is what it is. It's got a little anti-popcorn device inside. It clicks in just like the hopper would, and it has the same little tick in order to follow which number you're on. But other than that, same aesthetic, same design, but there are just some increases in quality. I'm gonna go ahead and take the hopper off so we can look inside. So when we first look at it, you can see that we have this little rubber gasket, which obviously makes contact with the bottom of either this or the actual hopper itself in order to have a seamless transition down into the burrs themselves, so grounds don't really get lost anywhere. So we pull that out. Obviously there's some grounds collected here, but that's probably 0.001 grams. The collar burr set just pops on out, just pulls straight up. And as you see, they have a little red mark here to line up with the red mark inside so that you always have it aligned in there properly. So as you see here, this is not a screw that you will need a wrench or a Phillips head for. It's a finger screw. So you just twist like it's reverse threaded, because it is reverse threaded. That was a weird thing to say. And boom, we have the top part of that off. Then we can just pull out the cone. So we have some retention here. All right, then you look inside, and of course, yes, we have some retention going on here, which happens in the original Encore as well as other grinders. All right, so we have it all out. So I'm gonna put this to the side, and we're gonna take a look at all these grounds. We pulled that all apart. It was about 0.4 grams of coffee that's kind of caught in there. Not ideal. Again, it's a budget grinder. And honestly, even on nicer grinders, you see about the same amount that's kind of retained inside before everything kind of comes out. But anyway, let's continue on. One thing that I'm really, I guess, unsure about is this little piece here. This is like a fuzzy piece of, oh no, I ripped it. I didn't do that. I'm not sure what this is really for, and I mean, that was very easy to rip. Look at that. So I'm not quite sure why this is needed. Maybe to keep it clean underneath. This goes underneath these pieces, so maybe it's just a cushion below. I'm not quite sure, but that looks like something that'll dirty up real fast, like within the first couple of months. But I'm gonna go ahead and put it back in because it was there. And these Burrs are what Orphan Espresso hand grinders choose to use. The Baratza Sette has a set of Etzinger Burrs in it as well. This is a slightly different geometry than that one though. And so we take a look at that, and what it reminds me of is actually the burr from the ZP6 from 1Z Presso. So take a look at this. Of course, 1Z Presso, they are out in Taiwan, no relation to Etzinger. But if you look, there are a lot of similarities. There are obviously differences. And a notable difference is when you're grinding this, it's 550 RPM. When you do hand grinder, around 100, 120 RPM. But it's a very similar geometry. The grooves aren't incredibly deep. They sit, you know, good enough for an adequate feed rate. But anyway, I just thought that was an interesting comparison right there. A huge upgrade in the quality of the burrs. That is a massive thing for the Encore. I always thought it would be a better grinder had it had a better burr set. The original burr set has like curved edges and really, it seems to be quite dull, and it seems to mash the beans more than it really slices and cuts, which causes a lot of fines productions, and I just never really enjoyed it. And then the collar burr, again, like in my fellow video, there's nothing really unique about it. It has a little bit longer finishing teeth, it looks like, than normal, which is a good thing, actually, I think. I think that helps with a little bit more uniformity in the grinding, but that's no surprise because Etzinger has been around for a bit, and they make quality burrs. So anyway, I'm gonna go and clean this back out. Inside, the burr carrier is still plastic, which of course crosses over from the original. So the build quality is what you'd expect the Encore to be, though there are tons out there still working. Now, one of the big benefits of Baratza is their customer service has proven itself time and again to be incredibly helpful and efficient. So their whole philosophy is to ensure that your grinder has as long of a life as possible. So people who've had defective parts, send it in, get it back for free, and they have videos on how to replace things. So I'm really excited that there's a company out there with this type of philosophy. And considering they're now branching out into Europe and other spaces, I'd imagine that customer service is gonna come along with it. I have full trust in the longevity of this machine because this is not a first. This is not their first attempt. They've been around for a long time and have dominated the home market for as long as I can remember. And now let's get to the feature that I'm most excited about, the innovation of all innovations recently, in my opinion. That is the dialing system. This is incredibly cool. Obviously, on introductory grinders, these are geared towards people who have a low budget or are new to coffee, new to espresso. So instead of having 1,000 clicks, which would be mind-boggling for someone in order to give you kind of the fineness of adjustment that you need to dial an espresso easily, instead of doing that, they decided to pioneer a new way, a new collar for adjustment. There are 40 steps on the Encore. From 1 all the way to 40, boom, okay? Very seamless to move it. Now you're thinking, yeah, 40 steps. How is that enough espresso settings to fine tune it? Then to have the AeroPress range, which is, you know, that really doesn't really mean anything. But then to have the mocha pot range, V60 range, cold brew, French press, blah, 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 blah. How, Lance? How? Well, let me tell you how, because this is sick. I know I keep building it up, and it's probably not as impressive as I think it is, but I think it is. Numbers 1 through 20, as you can see, are covered in black, okay? So it's a visual cue to let you know 1 through 20 are different, and they actually have smaller dots. Those are your espresso grind settings. Now you're thinking, oh my goodness, if it's 1 through 20, if those are all for espresso, does it only get coarse enough for like AeroPress at 40? No. What happens is from 1 to 20, every click is equivalent to 18.8 microns of vertical burr movement. Or if we were to talk in terms of like a comandante of burr gap, it's right around 9 microns burr gap, okay? That is incredibly granular. So if you think about it, the Comandante comes with 30 microns burr gap per click. You can buy the red clicks and make it go down to 15. This 1 through 20 is 9 burr gap. 9 microns. So each one of these is 18.8. So like on the Opus, that one had 16.6. If you open it up, go inside, do some mathematics. This one, without having to faff around, is right at 18 to 19 microns per click, which is way more than enough for you to really be able to get as close as possible to your desired espresso. Now, what happens after 20, you say? How in the world, Lance? Wait a second. How the heck-a-dig-a-deck do you get more space when all the clicks sound the same distance from one another? After 20 clicks, the thread essentially quadruples or something like that. But what happens is the threads are really fine as you're going click, click, click. Those threadings of the screw are really fine. And then after 20, whoom, the threads get a lot bigger. So every click has a more incline. So essentially, if you're visualizing the threads as being on this angle as they thread up, after 20, bang, they go like this. So it gets coarser exponentially quicker, okay? So that means we go from 20 to 21. Now the movement of the burrs is closer to 90 microns vertical burr movement, or right around 45 microns burr gap. So like 1.5 clicks on a Comandante, or 90, as I said, vertical burr movement would be almost 2 clicks on the new fellow Opus. You'll have a lot less capability of dialing in really finely for pour overs and cold brew, but it was a sacrifice that I think makes sense for a grinder of this price. You want it to be approachable, and having a ton of dials and whatnot makes it difficult. Having it like this, you're gonna get to where you want properly with filter. Of course, at $199, you're not gonna get the best cup of coffee on this grinder. You're not going to on anything this cheap. Let's just be honest. But there's not need for that much fine detail when you're at the filter grind setting. Of course, can you get better coffee with more fine detail? Absolutely, duh, hello. But how many of us are doing that? I feel like it'd be a small percentage of the population who would buy a BARATZA ENCORE ESP that is wanting that much detail at the coarser grind settings. It's necessary at espresso, not as necessary at the coarser settings. So I think this threading, this new way of creating the collar so that you can have your espresso settings as well as in 20 clicks enough to do the rest of your filter, I think it's brilliant. What we're gonna do for the rest of the video is I'm actually gonna do a taste test between this and the new Opus. I know, exciting, ooh. And then I'll also show you how long it takes to grind, filter coffee and espresso, and you can kind of hear how loud it is. Ready? Go. Just to be clear, this is not my first and only taste test on these grinders. I've had both of them for like 2 months or so, and I've been using them a lot, and I've been tasting against each other a lot, and I've done taste tests with other grinders, but this is one I thought would be helpful to do on video so that you all could have an understanding of where they line up against one another. So I have these two without any markings on the bottom are the BARATZA ENCORE. These two with markings on the bottom, the Opus. So let's go ahead, get to tasting. I'm gonna get Ugo to come on and switch these up for me so I have no idea where each of them are. So if you have misophonia, please feel free to skip forward. Otherwise, let's get to Slurp Town. This is one of my favorite coffees, one of my favorite Kenyas from last year. I love the coffee a lot. So all 4 of these tasted quite nice. I think these 2 are not as good as these 2. These 2 tasted a little bit more juicy. They tasted a little bit more balanced. They didn't have stringency on the finish. These 2 tasted like they might have, but we'll see if this one is as clear cut or if it's not. Again, this is a 350 RPM, 550 RPM. This is not sure the manufacturer of the Burrs, but they are a little deeper grooves than these are. Anyway, let's see what it is. These were my least favorite, I think. These are my favorite, I think. So let's see. Least favorite, that is the Opus. Least favorite, that is the Encore. All right, so they're very similar. They're very similar. Could not tell the difference really. I thought I could, but I could not. They're much closer than I thought. So what we'll do now, just for a second opinion, a second tongue, Ugo's gonna come on and slurp for us. Turn around. Okay, this coffee pro brought his own spoon. No, it's really my spoon, but he uses it. Taste it. Well, I thought about the army. That's it. So for people watching, Ugo was, but you may never see the light of day of that comment because he edits it, so he can edit that out. Okay, so Ugo said these were more juicy, these were less juicy. Let's check them out. This is the Encore. Encore! So he preferred the Encore across the board. Son of a gun. Son of a gun! He got all of them right and I didn't. He did say it was really hard and he was guessing, so let's even the playing field. All right, so let's get down to espresso, down to the nitty-gritty, as Jack Black says in Nacho Libre. Okay. Hey, welcome back. I have a shot made on each the Opus as well as the Encore ESP. Delicious. Don't you love the taste of crema in the morning? Ooh, that spoon was hot. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll do a little taste. This won't be blind just because espresso is so much different than filter, and I only have 2 cups. Just, again, I've tasted these a million times, so what I say is more sort of reflection of what's been happening, so it's pretty nice. It's pretty syrupy. There is kind of a funky, there's an astringent finish, but there's like a funky coating texture that's not as pleasant. It's like coating like white chocolate is coating. So in a kind of weird way, a waxy way. That's what I was looking for, waxy. This one's more rounded, a little bit more balanced. There's actually some chocolates coming through. There's like a strawberry, or like a watermelon starburst. That's a strawberry thing, star. Like watermelon starburst coming through. It's like graham cracker. This one, it's more sharp on the acidity, and the astringency is a bit higher. So anyway, that's kind of what we have going here. I think the body is a little better from the Encore, and I think that's a little bit more balanced. This one probably is better to really showcase that sharp acidity. They're very close, just like in the filtered. This one, I think, edges it out because the body is a little bit better, and it kind of tones down some of the harshness, a little less astringency, but they are both very good shots of espresso. Now, to kind of conclude the video, I wanted to grind espresso and filter on these, so you can kind of see what that sounds like. So I'm gonna do that real quick. So here we go. Ready? Less than 1/10 of a gram. Now let's go to .5. Okay. And I kind of want to pit these together for my final thoughts because I know that's what most of you are wanting. Well, okay, they're both same price. What do I buy? Oh, Lance, help me. Okay, first off, and the most important thing is flavor. I think they're both very good quality at their price point for flavor. The filters just tended to be a bit more balanced out of this one. There wasn't as much astringency. That was really the big thing, is you could kind of push the extraction in this, granted not crazy high because it's still a budget grinder, but you could push it a bit more without running into intense side poking astringency. This one tended to be a bit more more astringent when you push higher. You go coarser, you do lower extractions, it tends to do a lot better job. So I kind of err on this side. Espresso, much closer. This one, again, tends to be a bit more balanced. It just seems to be a more well-rounded cup. This one, you can probably get more acidity and punchy flavors through, but it's not settled in the same type of body that kind of caresses your tongue evenly as this one does. So I'm definitely leaning towards this. Aesthetically, I definitely prefer the Opus. They both weigh close to the same. I'd say this one weighs a little bit more, but they're both, plastic exteriors. They're both a little underwhelming as regards their premium feel, but again, what can you ask for a sub $200 grinder? As far as the dosing cup, the catch cup goes, I definitely prefer the Opus. This one can sit on your portafilter directly. I'm not a fan of how it's kind of loosely sitting in there. I wish there was some sort of ring, but it sits really close to the grinder, whereas this one's kind of low, and then the other option is this, which I'm just not a big fan of in general. As far as the grounds coming out, there's a lot more retention and a lot more messiness with the Opus. If you sit there and you do a lot of espresso shots in a row, at the end, if you pop it, you have just like so many grams of coffee that come out. This one, there's a lot less. In simple taps, I feel like this can handle taps a lot better than this, and it's because it's sitting like this portion is in front of kind of the main structure back here. So as I'm hitting it, I feel like over time it's going to want to bend, and maybe it could break down here somewhere. I don't know, but I feel a little less confident smacking this one around than I do this one, especially with this more robust single hopper on it. It's pushing in areas that are a bit more structurally supportive. So I feel like I can just pound this and it's going to be fine. I don't recommend it because it could mess up threading, okay? The grounds on this one come out a bit more clumpy at espresso settings than this does, but if you're not using WDT yet, the Weiss distribution technique video here, if you're not using that yet, I don't know what you're doing. So clumps should not be that big of an issue, but this one definitely is more clumpy. So if you're not looking to WDT, this might be a better bet because it comes out a bit less clumpy, I should say, and clumps can mess with your puck preparation. Sound, this has a more pleasant sound. Granted, neither of them are great, but that's definitely more pleasant. It sounds like a Hoover. That's a higher pitch, more shrill sound. And when grinding, this sounds like it's like a wow, 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 which is a bit more disturbing. This doesn't really change sounds as it's grinding. In my opinion, at this price point, because honestly, we're not getting just top tier quality, best tasting coffees out there. It's just impossible at this price point, at least currently. Because of that, the most important thing to me for what I recommend to you all is usability. And I think that is heavily in favor of the Encore. And it's because of this brilliant threading system that allows for micro adjustments and then it switches up to bigger macro adjustments in the higher end. This one is just really confusing to really dial in your espresso. That being said, if you don't do espresso and you're only doing filter, I would recommend actually this one over this. This has much more room. It has a lot more options. So if you're doing filter only and your choices are these, I would probably lean this. And at $199, I would actually recommend getting a hand grinder if you're only doing filter, because you can get much higher quality coffees from something like a K-Max from Easypresso or the ZP6 if it's still available by the time you watch this video. My preference for anyone who is doing espresso even 20% of the time would be this. It has a little bit of retention issues. The plastic burr carrier is not the greatest thing in the world. Also, I'm not a fan of the switch. It feels kind of plasticky and cheap. The actual knob is off and it's just a little piece of plastic. The good news is neither one of these are going to stall on you. I'm really excited about what's happening right now, which is a focus from big, well-established companies to focus on cheaper, more accessible grinders that can get you to where you need to go. It's been really difficult to recommend cheap espresso grinders because nothing really has done them that cheap. Under $200, it's mind-blowing. There, of course, are really cheap ones, but they're just not great. And these both are great options for you. So watch these two videos if you're down to these two and make your decision with as an objective a viewpoint as possible. Please make sure that you hit the link below on my Patreon. Check that out if that's something you want to support. I would greatly appreciate all the support. And we have a cool, thriving, bustling Discord that's connected to it where we chat and we talk about new videos. We talk about current trends in coffee. Also, just make sure you hit the subscribe, the like, all the good stuff. So anyway, I hope that you brew something tasty today, and cheers.